Hello, everyone. David here. Welcome back to the DGR podcast. Today, it's just me. I'm going to do a solo podcast, or I'm going to try at least, and just going to answer some questions. So I put up a question box thing on my Instagram yesterday, and I have a few, lots I'm not going to answer because they're just they're too specific to this one person's injury or issue or whatever. But then I have some broader ones that I think everyone can benefit from, hopefully, and I'll try and answer those. And we'll see how we go. Some of them I haven't even really looked at, but it just looks like a decent question. So I'll try and figure out my thought process as I answer the question. Update life-wise, I'm getting married in about 10 days. So this will be out actually when you're listening to this. If you're listening to this on the day it's out, I'll be getting married a week from that day. So Thursday week, it's now Tuesday. So 10 days from now, I'll be getting married. Everything is pretty much sorted. We think Kira has sorted a lot of things, and now I'm just trying to get all my work stuff done before then, so I can take like a good week off where I don't really think about it or anything like that. So that kind of involves doing this podcast, having another podcast in the books already for next week. What else? Like making sure our member site has videos and stuff ready for that. I think Jake Tura is going to do a guest presentation actually. So Jake did a podcast with us a while back, and it's one of our most popular episodes. So he's going to do a guest presentation on patellar tendinopathy for us. So I think that's one of my videos for the member site for next week. And so this podcast, what else do I need to do? Maybe try and plan a few Instagram posts, which I never actually do, but I'll probably need to do that, which is hard because I just kind of sit down every day for half an hour and try and whatever I was thinking about that day, I just post. So I'm going to have to try and plan out a few, I think, because I don't want to have to think about anything at all. And anything else I need to plan? No, that's probably about it. So that's the plan there. Organized the workshop in Florida. I'm going to go over to Jeffrey Wolf, the Flexi Bull, who also was on our podcast, who is the most popular podcast so far, actually. So you should go back and listen to Jake and Jeff. But I'm going to do the lower limb biomechanics, rehabilitation, and performance workshop in Jeff's gym, which is in Florida. I think it's in like Clearwater or something like that. It's not far from Tampa. I know just when I look at Florida, the size of Florida, it's massive. Like I was like, okay, we'll go to Miami, we'll go to Orlando, we'll go to Jeff's place, which is close to Clearwater, I think. Looking at my map now, they're all so far away from each other. But that's where we're going to go first weekend in September. So we'll be releasing the tickets. I'm not sure when, hopefully soon enough. I'll try and get all the stuff organized for that, the landing page and the website and everything. But we'll be releasing the tickets to I think my email list and Jeff's email list first. And Jeff said to me yesterday, I bet you the tickets will sell out just on our email list. So make sure you're on my email list. And if you actually want to get a ticket there. And Jeff has a great spot. He's like 5 minutes from the beach, he said, and we're going to it's almost like a destination type of spot. So even if you're not in Florida, if you're a few hours away or whatever, and you want to come hang out, learn a ton of stuff, that would be good. So make sure you're on the email list for that. And okay. So some questions. First one, Rob was straight in. Rob is one of our members. I think Rob's in Limerick, isn't he? He rehabs powerlifters, Rob Maloney. So Rob was straight in with the first question as soon as I put it up. Do you see any advantages in using flywheel training in the rehab process? Good question, Rob. It depends on obviously what you're rehabbing. I know you work with a lot of powerlifters, and I think maybe yes for them. So yes for them. Yes for maybe like rugby players, like front rowers, stuff like that. Anyone who doesn't have to maybe change direction particularly quickly, they just have to resist and push against high force, then that's someone that I think it could be valuable for those people. There's a few parts to this. So I actually tried to buy a flywheel, I think it was a K-box. I tried to buy it in the Black Friday sale last year, and I thought I had bought it, and whatever reason, I think my bank declined the transfer because our bank is a mess. No matter the bank stuff in Ireland, AIB Bank, are terrible. I can't do transfers. I can't buy anything. It's a disaster. And then you look at Revolut, you can like send money to anyone anywhere in the world and they get it in 10 seconds. And then I can't do, even with a card reader and everything, I can't do a transfer. So that's a story for another day. But I tried to buy one, and it wasn't really as much for like people's rehab. It was more for me to play around with it, start to see how this felt and figure it out and play around with different things. And so I didn't get it in the end because it didn't come. And whether it's useful, there's a few parts to this. Part one is the practicality of it. So if you look at the rehab stuff that I give to people, I would say 80% of it, I would say 100% of it can be done at home up until a certain point in the rehab process. So we have ways to absolutely stress the life out of people and make them way stronger without them needing to step into a gym. So I try to have as little barriers as possible. So some of our squat variations, some of our hamstring variations, upper limb is obviously quite easy as well. Some hopping variations like extensive, the yielding type of stuff. You can make people very strong and very explosive, and you can bridge a lot of gaps in the rehab process without ever needing to step into a gym. Now, obviously, someone like, let's say, Dinny's ACL rehab, he needs to go to a gym, even though in the beginning, like he didn't need to. There's some things he would benefit from in the gym, but we could get him. I actually, to be honest, I reckon I could do full ACL rehab without ever getting someone in the gym. It wouldn't be as good as it should be, obviously, but I still reckon I could do it. You just need to be a little bit creative. But it can be done. So I try to have as little barriers to getting people to do their exercises as possible. And if you think about a K box, like unless you're a massive facility like Arsenal Football Club, Man United Football Club, whatever, who have the ability to buy 30 K boxes, 50 K boxes or whatever, then you have maybe one K box or one flywheel type of lower body one upper body one in your gym. That means that if you're coming that one person, like if you're working with them one-on-one, that's fine. But they have to come to the gym every time if they want to use it. So that's an issue. That's the biggest issue, practical wise. That's the biggest issue. Secondly, there's a lot of claims and stuff being made about the flywheel training and things like that. I think, first off, if we think about the benefits of it, it's just making people stronger. And I think a lot of people that use it could just do a good old fashioned like lifting and getting stronger, right? They didn't need to use the flywheel to get stronger. They didn't need to use this big eccentric whatever to get stronger. They just needed to get stronger, and they just used the flywheel to do that, to help them do that, which is cool. But it's not saying that flywheel is better than anything else. It's just this is what they used, and they probably could have used just good old fashioned strength training to get stronger. Okay, so that's one thing. The practicality of it is the second thing. It does become a big issue. I know for my clients, like how many clients would I be able to actually use that with? And like I would much rather them have access and consistency rather than once a week they come into me and they do a few flywheel things and they feel good, but then they can't do it a second day or a third day. So that's an issue. Then the other thing is, I think with eccentric training, fast eccentrics is where it's at. So if you listen to the episode that I did with Daniel Back from Jump Science, from Jump Science, Daniel was talking about fast eccentrics and how that is the key really with regards to eccentric training and with regards to building athleticism, is being able to change direction faster. So being able to move from eccentric to concentric in as short a time as possible. That's where the magic happens, right? If you have any athletes that need to be able to change direction, jump, sprint, all of that stuff, it's all the same thing. It's moving from eccentric to concentric faster. And that's where the magic happens. The flywheel doesn't actually train that. It kind of trains the opposite of that, to be honest. It does train the opposite of that. So I think that's an issue. I think that could have like negative transfer for a lot of people. Actually could have, I'm not saying it does, but could have negative transfer for a lot of people. And actually, if I was going to try and train that where I want them to learn to change direction faster, then like your fast eccentrics, your jumping exercises, your sprinting, all of that stuff is what you need. So like Daniel was talking about, I can't remember what he was talking about, but just for example, like Nordics where you stop at the end, or just where you fall and stop at the end. That maybe that's not a great example, but an RDL where you like almost drop into it, things like that is much more valuable, I would say, than flywheel training. Way more valuable. So dropping in and catching, or dropping in and pushing out as fast as you can, that stuff I think is way more valuable than flywheel training. It's way more practical than flywheel training, because you can train that effectively with no equipment, or with equipment, and that will yield performance benefits. Now, if you don't need to change direction as quickly as possible, then that's where the flywheel might be more beneficial. So a powerlifter or a rugby player in a scrum, or I'm sure there's any number of sports or positions and people that you could name. And if you just want to get stronger, good old-fashioned strength training is a good way. I think flywheel training could be really cool. I just don't know probably enough about it to say I think it's really good for this, and this. I don't know enough about it. And I don't think I would change my mind on that, but that's not to say I would change my mind. So is it useful? Definitely. Is it required? Definitely not. And is it as good as some other things? Definitely not, I don't think. No, definitely not. It's not. Fast eccentrics, do that stuff rather than your flywheel stuff, and I think you'll see much bigger benefits. And that's where you very rarely see anyone they don't do fast eccentrics. They do heavy, slow eccentrics, no fast eccentrics. That's where the money is, I think. So go back to listen to Daniel's chat on that, and that's where you'll start to see, like, that's what we're saying instead of the flywheel, I think. So so hope that answers your question, Roberto. Okay, next one, let me see. We'll go over here. I'm trying to understand variability and pain. Do you typically see more or less variability in someone in chronic pain? You'll typically see less variability. So when someone is in pain, if you just want to take like back pain, the system is trying to predict as much as possible. It's a top-down type of thing. I actually think I did a video on this for the member site. I did talking about like freezing degrees of freedom, co-contractions, all of that stuff. It was with regards to change of direction work. But I did another video, I think, on top down versus bottom up. Yeah, I definitely did. So there's 2 videos on the member site that kind of answer this in a roundabout way, talking about different topics, but definitely touch on this. So someone's in like chronic pain. Now, everyone is different, right? Everyone is different, but you'll typically see less variability. So if you want to think about this, we'll take like 3 examples of 3 different people. So my brother's son, who is now starting to walk, or is now walking for the first time, he has huge amounts of variability. So every single movement he makes looks so different. So everything is completely different in his movement. All right. So there's so much variability. It's not a top-down approach. He's not thinking about his movement. Everything is being controlled pretty much by reflexes, and the reflexes are saving him all the time. So like every step is effectively a fall, and the reflexes are stopping him from falling over. Right. So it's just like light bulbs coming on left and right. And that's trying to manage the perturbations and the variability that's in his movement, because it hasn't, if you listen to John Kiley's episode, it hasn't smoothed it out. His movement hasn't smoothed it out. He doesn't have enough just reps in the tank for the brain to be able to make, and the body to be able to make really accurate predictions about what's going to happen on every single step I make, because he hasn't taken enough steps yet. But every single day I see him, his movement is starting to smooth out a little bit more, and there's less variability in, let's say, something like his walking. There's much less variability coming in every single day, definitely every single week. But for now, like, it's such a reflexive movement. Them reflexes are effectively trying to stop him from falling on his face all of the time. And yeah, so that's someone with high levels of variability, and like very much bottom up type of thing. He's not thinking about every step he takes. Then you take like high level athlete, right? So there can't be with an elite athlete, like you will see there can't be too much variability, right? So they have to, how do I put this? Because this is the tricky one, right? And this is what we were trying to answer with John Kiley as well. So actually, Bosch talks about this quite well, I think. So let's say in a deceleration pattern, right? For a soccer player or something like that. So they're going to decel and they need to decel quite fast and quite hard. What you'll typically see, or what you would like to see, is hip and knee flexion happening together. So it spreads the load across, but kind of all these structures, right? So hip and knee flexion, they couple together and that helps spread the load, right? So if you see knee flexion and hip extension in a deceleration pattern, then this is where you see a lot of ACLs going, right? So Bosch has all this work, and like, so one of his big things is hip and knee flexion in deceleration patterns, okay? And you see this again and again and again with, like, it really doesn't matter what the sport is. A lot of elite athletes will do this, and then you'll see a lot of ACLs going. For example, this is just one thing. You see a lot of ACL ruptures when the athlete, for whatever reason in the sport, has to couple knee flexion, but they don't go into hip flexion, they stay in hip extension, and that kind of just pushes. You'll see this anterior translation of the tibia, and that is a recipe for disaster. It doesn't mean it's going to go, but like, that is where a lot of ACLs are going, right? So that is kind of you don't want to see too much variability there. That is like an inbuilt pattern where the anatomy and the coordination of the tissues and the system learns to manage this and keep the tissues safe effectively, right? It's learning to disperse the force in the best way, most efficient way possible to keep the system safe. So that's an example of, there's not much variability there. Now, obviously, there's levels of how much hip and knee flexion they go into, but you will see, hopefully, with most elite or sub-elite or even okay athletes, going into hip and knee flexion when they decelerate, okay? So that's an example of, okay, they don't have that much variability, hopefully, in those patterns, but there is variability within that pattern in terms of how much hip and knee flexion they'll go into, where the trunk might be, all of this stuff, but you'll still see hip and knee flexion most of the time. All right. So this is, that's something. Then Bosch is like attractors, the other attractors and stuff that he talks about. That's an elite athlete's way of having something that Bosch talks about, is like having a simple body. So a simple body, if you look at like change of direction, agility, all this stuff, there's just too much going on to have firstly, to have a top-down approach where the brain is managing all of these things. There's too many degrees of freedom. So it's quite a simple body. And the attractors and the anatomy is what's managing that. So it's trying to limit the variability, even though, like, okay, there's so many degrees of freedom here. This intermuscular coordination is kind of managing the co-contractions, the pre-tensioning, all of this stuff, the reflexes, the preflexes are obviously built in. All of this stuff is managing how we move our mass in an environment where there's a lot of time pressure, and there is a lot of variability in the environment and in the task as well. Okay, so like, there is limited variability in these things, and Bosch talks about how, like, okay, here's the attractors that you pretty much want to see, but the attractors are obviously fighting against each other and stuff like that as well. Okay, so there's a lot of variability there, but then the system is trying to make it as simple a body as possible and limit the variability. Now, outside of the attractors, there can be a lot of variability, and again, the attractors are fighting against each other, depending on the task and the time pressure and all of that stuff and the situation, right? So, like, it's a very complex question. I don't feel like I'm actually answering it very, very well, but an athlete has access to a ton of variability usually, but doesn't mean they're using a ton of variability all of the time. So, like, if they need to, a Gaelic footballer needs to catch a ball and turn and evade three players and, like, just get into a funny position to kick the ball or catch the ball or something like that, they can exhibit a ton of variability in how they do these tasks. It could be, it looks different every single time, right? It looks different every single time, but the not micro, but the smaller parts of the body that make up them macro movements are like, there will be attractors evident in those things which are limiting the variability and keeping the body quite simple at the same time. So that's hopefully that explains like the other kind of, not the other end of the spectrum, but you have like my brother's son, and then you have my brother playing football, right? So there's two ends of the spectrum, and one is like there's a lot of variability, and it's just the system is trying to learn how to manage that. The other is the system has learned how to manage the variability. They have access to this, but there is these attractors, and there is these patterns that make the body much more simple, and the anatomy is making the body much more simple to manage that variability all of the time. Okay, now some athletes lose a lot of variability. That's a different question. Like, they start to lose a lot of the variability, and everything kind of, that's another question altogether. But the best athletes, like, they have enough. How much is enough? I don't know, but they then have these attractors built in to manage that variability as well, to manage, basically to make it a simple body. I like that phrase, simple body, and to manage these degrees of freedom, because there's just too much going on. Then, like, someone in pain, then if you take someone with chronic back pain, you're not going to see variability. Like, they walk in, and effectively it's like they're walking. If you ever walked outside in Ireland or Boston in the winter or something like that, and there's ice on the floor, you're walking, and next thing you start to see ice, everything in your body starts to squeeze. There's co-contractions everywhere, and you walk over that ice, like, you might widen your base of support. You're much more slow and careful and methodical, and that's a much more top-down approach. Then now it's both, right? It's both. The anatomy is managing that. Like, the anatomy is, okay, there's just co-contractions everywhere, there's kind of squeezing everywhere, there's much less probably knee extension, things like that. You just see this kind of rigid knee, rigid elbow all of the time. So there's much less degrees of freedom there, is the word, or is the phrase. There's much less degrees of freedom when you're walking over that. And if you look at someone with chronic back pain walking into your clinic, a lot of the time it's almost like they're walking on ice. They don't want to. It's definitely a very much top-down heavy, where they are using their brain to manage the movement. And if you ask them to pick up a pen, like, they'll stop, they'll think about it, they might brace, they'll bend down, only like they might hinge down, they might not round their back, all of that stuff. So you will see, and then with regards to the variability, it's not like, okay, you just say that's one movement, but then you ask them to do all of these different movements, a toe touch, a squat, a rotation, a lateral flexion, whatever other movements you want. You'll actually see the spine do the same thing all of the time, where they just keep the spine like completely still and try and like tear their shoulders, or really move their shoulders to rotate around in their neck, and all of this stuff. So same in the lateral flexion, you just see the spine staying still a lot of the time. Now, not all of the time, don't get me wrong, but with a lot of these, like chronic back pain, you just learn to just brace around their spine, and a lot of that variability is gone. So reintroducing that obviously is so important for those type of people, and education and stuff like that is so important. And then just fluid movement. This is why I don't like just talking about, like, okay, just make them stronger, so just get them to deadlift and squat and all that stuff. That's a great option. Like, definitely do get that. But then I love the medicine ball throws for those type of people. Once they're ready for it, obviously, but like standing, half kneeling, tall kneeling, staggered stance, all that stuff, medicine ball throws, and like the ones in core basics, like just all of that stuff. I use them all the time with my back pain people. Just throwing that ball nice and relaxed against the wall. There's a few things. One, you don't need to really cue them, apart from like just maybe relax a little bit. We're not trying to go maximal here, just relax and throw. So it gets everything moving. It gets them, you can coordinate the breath if you want, where they exhale and they throw or whatever. You can manage like the foot pressures. You can get them on a single leg. So like maybe distally they're creating more co-contractions around the knee joint and stuff like that. They're on top of the midfoot, but approximately then you're starting to see the spine and the ribs and the pelvis move. So you're trying to change that strategy and stuff like that. So like the fluidity of movement for those type of people, getting that back is so important. And just strength training where it's like, how much can you lift, isn't necessarily the only way to go about that. I think like the fluidity and going for walks and stuff and getting them to look out into space, look forward, be aware of your peripheral vision. That starts to get their arms to swing. They stop looking down. Their pump handle opens up. Their chest opens up. And they start to just appreciate the world around them a lot more. That changes anything that can just change how they move, and it gives them back a slightly different pattern, slightly different way of sensing things and feeling things and stuff like that. That's a really big deal. So that's a simple way to do it: walks, medicine ball throws, and then just like getting them to round their back, picking different things up, all this stuff. So just kind of scrambling the signal, scrambling the way that they've taught themselves to brace. That's a really big deal. And I've probably gone off on one now, so I will stop there. But that's kind of 3 examples of 3 different people, and hopefully I didn't butcher that too much. So there's 2 answers. I think Liam asked this one: bodybuilding style training affecting GAA. Gaining tissue negatively affects performance. So I'm going to take that as a question rather than a statement, Liam. So bodybuilding style training affecting GAA. GAA is Gaelic football and hurling, for anyone, are 2 main Irish sports, better sports than anyone else's sports. Gaining tissue negatively affects performance. So, right. There's no right or wrong answer here. Like, you will see now that a lot of the top players across Ireland are after leaning down a lot in both Gaelic football and hurling. So like, if you looked at a lot of the Dublin footballers, maybe the most successful, maybe the best team ever over the last 5 to 10 years, a lot of them are a lot leaner now than they were. And they actually, in their most successful period, a lot of them were very, very lean, and that's just so that they can cover ground. So the game, hurling and football, is basically gone into, there's not as much contact as there once was. For a while, it was like a rugby game. There's really not as much contact as there once was. So it's about like covering ground, moving quickly, trying to exploit space, trying to open space, trying to close space. That's what the game has gone into, and then executing on that. So now, obviously, don't get me wrong, if you're weak, you will get absolutely mauled, and you won't be playing in the first place. But yeah, that's a lot of the best players are much leaner now, and bodybuilding training can get in the way of that. Definitely, I can see people, and I've worked with people in like some of the top teams in Ireland in both hurling and football, and I can see some players that definitely could do with losing a few kilos of muscle, of 100% of muscle that they could lose. I think it's really affecting their performance at the moment, and I think they're like picking up niggles and stuff like that because they're heavier than they need to be. So it can get in the way. But like, in the first few years of someone's development, maybe not. So like, after you've put on a certain amount of muscle, using bodybuilding training, that's a great way of going about things. And just after a certain stage, like, okay, you've just done too much now, you need to kind of pare it back a little bit, or maybe don't go into that stage in the first place. So we do all know the athletes on our team that came back after an off season, or did 3 or 6 months, not 3, but 6 months of like heavy bodybuilding type of work, and they just ballooned. Now, I could do bodybuilding work for the next 2 years, I wouldn't balloon. Some lads just look at a weight and they put on a ton of muscle. So like, it does depend on the type of person. Some lads, it makes their game better. Some lads, it makes their game, or guys and girls, it makes their game worse. In season though, I think bodybuilding style training can be really, really nice, because if you're already fatigued, let's say you're training 2, 3, 4 days a week, 2, 3 days a week, let's say, on the pitch, and a game on the weekend, like you are fatigued, and then bodybuilding training can be quite good, because you can get some direct arm training, you can get some back training, you can get some chest, you can get some calf, you can get some hamstring, you can get some quad, and you don't need to maybe go hammering yourself in squats. That might be like, okay, my back just really stiffens up when I do these squats or do these deadlifts or things like that. So in season, I actually see a bigger issue with the powerlifting type of training that a lot of athletes do. And this is still taught in the inter-county scene. Like, a lot of S&C coaches are still teaching powerlifting training in season to athletes, where they're going heavy on their squats, they're going heavy on their deadlifts. And I'm not talking about with like primers, okay, just potentiation type of work. where I just do a heavy double or something and then go out into the pitch. I'm talking about like, okay, we squat heavy every single week type of thing, or relatively heavy every single week, or we deadlift. And I think this is actually causing more issues than the bodybuilding stuff. So I would much rather, and actually a lot of the athletes I work with, when we're trying to clean up things in season, I get them on doing their bodybuilding type of work. And then we have like our full range of motion lifts, but I don't get them to lift as heavy when they're doing the full range of motion lifts. So they're keeping their strength and like maybe getting a little bit of a hypertrophy or tendon health or whatever with their bodybuilding type of exercises. And then I'm cleaning up their hips with their larger range of motion, like squats and stuff like that. But it's more with an expansive point of view where like, okay, I'm making sure I'm breathing through the range. I'm not bracing as hard as I can. Now, that's just the kind of population that I work with a lot of the time. So I do see more negative transfer with the powerlifting type of training and even the Olympic lifting stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, like we should hopefully be able to keep in strength throughout the season, maintain it at least, or maybe increase it throughout the season using our like heavy squats and our heavy deadlifts. And we should, if you like, and the players are good at it, like Olympic lifts and stuff like that, I have no problem with that. But I do see maybe that there's more negative effects with the powerlifting side of things, because I see a lot of tight backs, I see a lot of hamstring tears, I see a lot of like groin issues and stuff like that. And groin issues, hamstring tears, what else, like kind of just hip issues, knee issues. I see people being driven into a lot of extension in season when they're already extended, like they're already, I mean systematic extension throughout their body, in their spine. I mean, the big anterior orientation, I mean, pushed forward, because their sport is kind of doing that to them a little bit, and then they go into the gym and they do that even more. And I do see like these tight backs and these kind of lifts preceding then, okay, now I have a little hamstrings niggle or a little calf niggle or a quad or a groin or something like that. So I see I see, not all the time now, but I see a lot of tight backs when I hear like, okay, my back is really tight for the last few weeks because of the lifts we're doing. I see like, that's a kind of not a red flag, but close to a red flag for me, that okay, there's a good chance something's going to go wrong here over the next few weeks, because your body just is telling you, I need to back off on this. So bodybuilding, I actually really, really like it, but there's a way of doing it without like completely blowing up altogether. And powerlifting, I think, is more of an issue. That style of training is more of an issue in season, maybe not as much in the off season. So yeah, so gaining tissue negatively impacts performance. Of course it can at a certain point. This is not something anyone talks about, but we can all look on the television, hopefully, and see players that just put on too much muscle, and they know their movement is impaired as a result. And I don't even mean like mobility, just their ability to maybe even just last the game. They just have more mass to carry around. So yeah, okay. I hope that answers that question. And then I'm going to do one more. How much pain should you be in when doing rehab work, and what should you feel the next day? So I can't really answer this question, because how much pain should you be in? Ideally, no pain, but you can't go around saying no pain either. Like, you shouldn't be in pain ever, because that's creating a bad relationship with pain, where pain is this big thing that we're putting on a pedestal. And oh, if I feel pain at all, okay, here's a big issue and big red flag and blah, 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 blah. So we don't want to go into that. And also it depends on the type of thing. So like if it's a tendinopathy and it's a 1 or 2 or 3 out of 10 pain when I'm training, that might not be a bad thing at all. So you're much better off judging that pain on how it feels the next morning. If it was a 3 out of 10 while I train, but it's a 1 out of 10 the next day, like that's probably a good thing. I'd probably keep going at that. Whereas if we say you shouldn't feel pain at all, then like if you're someone in season with a tendinopathy, patellar tendinopathy, hamstring tendinopathy, and Achilles tendinopathy, and you say, okay, how much pain should you be in? Okay, you shouldn't be in any pain when you train in the gym. Then like, when are you going to train? Because all in season, you're going to have some symptoms almost all of the time. So when are you actually going to train? The answer is you're not going to get a chance to. You're going to feel some kind of level of discomfort or pain, even if it's a 1 out of 10 all of the time. So how much pain should you feel depends on the issue. The one place where I don't like people to have much, if or any pain, is the shoulder. For some reason, now this is just my bias, but like these narky shoulders that are going on for 6 months or a year or 2 years, where like, okay, every time I open the fridge, every time I take a cup out of the press, every time I do anything, I just get this sharp kind of pain, or this dull pain, or whatever type of pain. That's something that I think, and actually no, not even that, but like, even I go into the gym and I just do these variations, and the next day my shoulder is always achy and sore for the full day after it, or 2 days after it. That's something I try and limit with the shoulder more than anything else, because I don't know why, but I just see a lot of shoulder issues being much better off and cleaning up much quicker if someone has had that pain for a long time. I'm like, okay, for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're going to try to, if we do get pain, it's fine, but we're going to try to avoid in our exercises. Now, not opening the fridge, but in our exercises, I'm going to try and avoid pushing into, or you're going to try and avoid pushing into any of those ranges. So we're just going to be safe for 2 or 3 weeks and stay like, okay, if it's in this range you think you're going to feel pain, I want you to stay 10% clear of that. So just train through the range that you feel comfortable at. And suddenly over the few weeks, you start to see that, okay, that range expands and the pain is just getting pushed further and further and further away. We're getting stronger, and our range is increasing. Our range that we're pain-free range is increasing, rather than getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, which does happen with a lot of shoulder issues. So that's the one place that I really try and limit pain. If I won't start there, but if someone has had issues for a while and it just seems like no matter what they do, they just keep aggravating it and aggravating and aggravating it, I feel like the brain just keeps closing in on them a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And like, this is presuming there's no damage there in the first place. But so that's the one place I like to make sure that we're not pushing in too much. And I do feel like 3 weeks without pain, and then we start to tippy toe towards it a little bit more, but suddenly the pain isn't there. It gives us another 5% of range, another 5%, another 5%. I think that's a really good way of approaching some of these chronic, like niggly shoulder type of things that never seem to go away. And you could apply that obviously to any other part of the body, but for the most part, don't put it on a pedestal. If in 6 weeks time, let's say it's a knee joint or something like that, if in 6 weeks time our pain is the exact same as it was today, but we've got 6 weeks of training in and the pain is no worse, then that's a big, massive win, a huge win. And I'll make sure people understand that that's a big win. You're now way stronger. You're after getting the joint moving, all of these things, and like the pain is no worse. Big win. So if it means training through a 1 or 2 out of 10 pain, but the pain isn't getting any worse day to day wise, then I think that's a really good thing, a really good win. So I hope that should is a hard question. So much depends on every single individual person. Okay, what else? How do you address clients' history with trauma in rehab? I think Sam asked that question. Sam, I'm going to not answer that one because I don't know what type of trauma you mean. Physical trauma, emotional trauma, whatever. So I'll need clarity on that one before I answer it. What takeaways should you take? I think you should take away that fast eccentrics is like one of the most underutilized things that you could use in the rehab process or performance training. Fast eccentrics, really important. I think you should take away that the variability side of things, that like understanding that elite athletes, they have like the simple body is the phrase. If you take that from Bosch, their body is doing everything it can to like create this simple body, or at least around not around, but yeah, so simple body, and they have variability, but they try and they have attractors as well that they go to all the time to simplify things. And I think you should think about like how you view and speak, maybe your own way, what mentors and people have influenced you, but like how you actually view that and how you speak, and if you're just mimicking the things that they're saying or you're actually critically thinking. Bodybuilding versus powerlifting. maybe bodybuilding training in season is better. Maybe we're going back to a thought process that for a long time we moved away from, saying bodybuilding training was bad. Maybe not so much. Maybe it allows people to put stress through certain muscles without doing funny things at their spine and compressing the hell out of them everywhere at the same time. And yeah, I think that's it. Okay, this is going to be, I think, my last podcast before I get married. And I'm just going to read my little ad roll, which is make sure you join DGR Interactive. I don't have this written down, by the way. I'm just looking on my phone to see what content we put up. So Jake is going to put up his, he's going to do his video there. He is going to, or I'm going to put up a video this week, which talks about the forefoot. I'm just seeing what we emailed out. So I'm going to talk about the forefoot. So like breaking down some forefoot mechanics. And then you might have seen the post that I put up on Instagram where I had a guy jumping onto a wedge, on and off a wedge. I'm going to break down what's happening there at the foot and why you might use a wedge in that position or a different position when you're doing a pogo hop. So really, really cool things I think to see. And this is like a thought process that you can take with you anywhere, basically. So yeah, so that's a thing. And what else? Yeah, we had like a load of members join us recently. So we had like 50 members join us over the last few days. And we just broke 500 members for the first time. So like, if you want basically my support for the full year, if you want my team support, like Kira, Alice, Chris, all these people, if you want to be in our members only Facebook group, which is a new group we created just recently, and you want to be in there, we're posting stuff in there every day. Different members and people are posting stuff in there every day. And then we obviously have the platform where we have all our educational videos. No matter what you want to learn, between 5, 10, 15 minutes, you can go in, click a video, you learn about gait, you can learn about hopping, you can learn about mid stance, max propulsion, you can learn about Achilles issues, looking at a round heel, you can learn about plantar fasciitis, you can learn about big toe dorsiflexion, bunion videos, all this stuff, as much practical info as I can. You could take a pronation class, you could take a squat class, you can take a hinge class with Chris and tear your glute apart, open up your internal rotation, all this stuff. Literally the movement education of your dreams is my new tagline. So yeah, that's the end of the podcast. And I thank you guys for joining me very much and hope I wasn't too waffly, and I will talk to you guys soon.